1-800-357-0910 is our number. You can call in anytime during the show. But right now I have a very special guest. We've been looking at the State of the Union address last night. Kevin Martin is a member of the Advisory Council for the Project 21 Black Leadership Network, an environmental contractor in the Baltimore, D.C. area, not very far from us, and also longtime public policy commentator and frequent guest on radio shows and Fox News Channel throughout the year. Other than that, he's not doing anything. And Kevin joins us this morning here on the Gary Sutton Show. Kevin, great to have you on as a guest.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me on, Gary.
And I say that tongue-in-cheek. I mean, it sounds like you're a pretty busy guy most of the time.
But never too busy. I really enjoy doing what I do, and never too busy to be on with anyone out there. So
I was reading last night after I watched the whole speech last night, as I'm sure you did, and one of the things that I know, one of the reactions that came out of your group, Project 21, who we have a great deal of respect for, was contempt for the Constitution. And a lot of people have been concerned about this for a while, but it seemed to kind of come to the forefront for you guys last night. Talk a little bit about that, if you will.
Well, basically, this president feels that he can do anything he wants, and in a lot of circles, that is true. He does what he does. Then his detractors scream that if you don't support it, you're quote unquote racist.
Right.
You don't like him. There's obstructionists in Washington. The whole 9 yards. They make excuses for him, but the funny thing is, as a candidate, he was against executive privilege. He was against all these things. Then when he became president, all of a sudden it became hip and cool, and it was a thing to do, and it's the right thing to do. But, Gary, over the last 5 years, it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Okay, and you're out there screaming this populist rhetoric last night. I felt like I was watching a high school pep rally. I really did. I felt like, I went to high school 25 years ago, and, it's like the cheerleaders who scream, give me an A, give me an R, we're going to beat those guys. On top of all that, it was a Groundhog's Day State of the Union. We've heard all this before. It hasn't worked before. And then all of a sudden, the one thing that really got me was this whole raising the minimum wage thing.
Right. Okay,
how are you going to raise the minimum wage? You don't even pay women in your White House the same amount of money. Now you're screaming for private corporations to pay equal work for equal pay when you don't even do it yourself.
And yet we did some things on this morning showing how that, on a fact check, there's probably about a 5-cent difference right now overall in that whole deal because women work different times of the year just because of nature of what women do. If they're leaving work to go have a child, that kind of thing. I mean, there are differences out there. But that, the larger point here is that it's another reset. What reset is something you do in a game. I'm tired of resets.
You took the words right out of my mouth. That was the next thing I was getting ready to say. It's like every time they hit a speed bump, as they call it, they hit the reset button. But like what Hillary Clinton did with the Russians, everyone's standing around with like the Russians scratching our head. Because, we're like, okay, we've heard this crap before. Okay, it doesn't work. You've added $7 trillion to the debt already. 92 million Americans out of work. 20% increase in food stamps. And you're saying everything is working. We're in recovery. I used to like this thing they always tell us, well, we're rounding the quarter, we're rounding the quarter. Gary, if you round the quarter too much, you know what you end up doing?
Go ahead.
Going in a circle.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right.
And that's what we did. That's why I call it the Groundhog's Day speech, because we've heard this before last year, the year before that, the last 4 years. We're in recovery, the summer recovery, shovel-ready jobs. You can keep your doctor, all this other stuff. And now it's just populist rhetoric. And most people were like, okay, we've heard this before. The majority was like, we've heard this before. Turn to something else. Okay? And that's what we're saying. This man has contempt for the Constitution. Now he's saying, okay, well, if I don't get my way, basically what he said last night, and you have to take it tongue-in-cheek, is if my party loses the Senate, I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want to do anyway.
Yeah. And so then you have people sit back on the other side, and you kind of feel like, this.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Remember that line from Cool Hand Luke? And the warden says, yeah, what we have here is a failure to communicate. We have that failure right now, but it's not communication necessarily between the president and the Congress. It's communication between the president and the American people and the Congress and the American people about, what it is that we want and how we're living compared to what they want and how they're living. It's like two separate entities.
And you know what? You talk about that. When he threatened unilateral executive action, I'll quote another movie for you.
Go ahead.
Have you ever seen Smokey and the Bandit?
Absolutely.
When Jackie Gleason goes, what we have here is a lack of respect for the law.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
This man thinks that he can pick up a pen, just simply write it into existence, and everyone else is supposed to go, okay, it's going to work. Even the experts, even the constitutional experts say there's very little you can do with executive action. All you can do, it's like taking pieces of a chessboard and moving them around.
Right.
Okay, but if you don't conquer anything, what's the point of even playing?
But if you also take executive action and it involves any money, the other part that still is something that we have in our Constitution, I think, well, not in our Constitution, but it's the way our Congress works, they have to fund it. And that is written up in our Constitution. So if they don't fund it, you can stand there and make all the executive orders you want, but they're going to be like, empty promises that really don't mean anything. But again, it seems like there's a mentality here, Kevin, that says, you know what? If I promise it, therefore it happened. That's the way it works, right?
Right. It's just like his promise of, well, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your plane, you can keep your plane. But what happened in the end? People lost their plans.
And then they try to come back and say, well, that's not really what, he didn't really say that. You say, wait a second. I speak English. When he says you can keep your doctor, period, I understand that. It's okay. It's like if I say I'm walking down the road into the drugstore, period, it didn't mean I'm walking into someplace else.
Right.
So we're tired of this politispeak where, and I'm sure you are too, where you constantly have to dissect. That goes back to the Clintonese kind of stuff we used to hear with, well, it all depends on what is, that kind of stuff.
And that's why people are like, okay, they hunch their shoulders like say, okay, whatever. Okay, we've heard the Clintonese speech. This basically was, and I'm going to call it what it was. It was a pep rally for his party to get out the base, to hope to hold the Senate. Okay, but right now there's nothing they can do. Everywhere you look, his allies are in trouble, whether it be in Arkansas, whether it be in North Carolina, whether it be in Michigan. Anyone who voted for this Obamacare stuff is in trouble.
Right.
Okay, people are losing their health care. Okay, no one can, when you're out there, and I understand Americans out there, when you put in 50 resumes and you don't get a call back, but someone's telling you, oh, well, we're creating jobs, and
right.
you just finally give up.
Yep.
Okay, and like I say, don't get me wrong when I say this, Gary, raising the minimum wage will do very little. Americans want real jobs. You cannot raise a family of four working a minimum wage.
No, you can't. The idea is to do better than that and go for it. And most jobs in America, after you get by, your school-type job you get into, like I did. I don't know if you did too, but, ages 16 to 25 is the number of people normally see it. Yeah, okay. You're getting into a minimum wage job with the understanding that is not where you plan to live the rest of your life, for heaven's sakes.
Right. No one wants to be a burger flipper for the next 20 years. Okay, no one wants to mop a floor for the next 20 years. And then on top of it all, Gary, there is no way, excuse my language, no way in hell that anyone in their right mind can support amnesty with 92 million Americans out of work.
Yeah. Now, here you go. And we've already seen what that's done to the living wage. But here's a point. What I hear last night, and this is something I haven't heard too many people talk about, and I wanted to kind of posit this to you, Kevin, then we want to take a call here from Ray, is this. I hear the president constantly talking about minimums and dependency as opposed to maximum and independence. So he goes and he says, okay, minimum wage, that's going to do it. We'll raise that. And everybody stands up and screams and yells. And yet minimum wage fakes the economy because the economy is, all right, I'm starting my business here. The president always talks about, small business being the backbone of America. I'm starting my business. I'm taking a couple of years here to get it going. I don't have a lot of capital that I can, take out of it yet, but I'm really building it. And now you come along and say, well, I should be paying $10.10 an hour or $15 or whatever it's supposed to be. And that's fake. That is not what America's about. It should be the actual, supply and demand, the back and forth. And if business is to be rewarded, let the business take care of deciding how much they can pay someone right now and then increase that as they grow.
Well, I can tell you this much, Gary. As a business owner myself, okay, first of all, I'm not going to pay my employees $10 an hour. If they're good employees, my employees make $32 an hour.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Okay.
Which is, do you have any jobs open right now, by the way? I'll be coming to work for you, Kev.
Not right now,
All right.
but I'll tell you like this. My employees make my business,
right?
Okay? And I'm going to do my best to retain the best employees out there. So I'm going to pay them more than what my competitors normally pay. More than what the government demands, more than what my local government demands, because that's how I keep my employees.
And so you're doing exactly what the president said last night, but you're doing it because you're doing it, your choice, your business, you're doing the right thing, and you don't have the government telling you what you have to do. That's what it's really all about. Kevin, we got a caller here. Let's get Ray in York. Ray, you're on with Kevin Martin on the Gary Sutton Show. Go ahead, Ray.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning, Ray.
Okay, listen, here's the thing. I'm an old man, all right? I'm 72 years old. That's the good news. The bad news is I'm still working because I got to pay the West York School Board. Now we got past that. The last time I heard the community organizer, and some of you people call the president, tell the truth, was when he said he was going to fundamentally change the country.
Yeah, okay. And so I think
that's a fact.
You might say, Ray, and thank you for your call, you might say he's achieved doing that to some degree right now, Kevin. And I don't know who he meant by you people, I guess all of us out here, but the president used to talk about hope and change. Where'd that go?
The hope and change is nothing but more than trickle-down big government, and you're right. He has fundamentally changed the country because more Americans have went to work from work to government dependency.
Was there any one thing last night, that stood out to you that you just about threw, a brick at the TV or anything?
Basically, when he honored the young military man as a veteran myself.
Yes, thank you for your service. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe that military service is one of the highest things you could do.
Yes.
Okay, to support your country. But other than that, it was a Groundhog Day speech. It was just like he went through the past 4 State of the Union speeches, picked out the populist rhetoric, screamed it last night. Like I said, I felt like I was watching a pep rally.
Do you feel like, he talked about immigration, and he but he didn't talk about it much. I mean, it was just kind of a passing glance, so to speak. And he's looking for something somewhere to be a victory right now in an election year. And that's all I got the idea about was this guy wants to get this done in election year because Democrats are down his throat right now saying, we got to defend Obamacare. We got to have something to show our constituents come November.
Bingo. I couldn't have put it better myself. I mean, like I told you, last night was really nothing more than a pep rally for the Democrat operatives to go out and with their marching orders. And this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to say. This is how we're going to say it. I mean, how many more jobs tours can this man go on?
Yeah.
He's been on more jobs tours than basically, I guess, more tours than Jay-Z. But still, nothing's getting done.
Yeah.
Nothing is getting done. There are no jobs really being created. They keep screaming about these 2 million private sector jobs that they've created, but you got 92 million Americans out of work who are chronically unemployed. And nothing was said last night that gave any type of, how should I say it, pomp and circumstance. State of the Union used to came out, and this is what presidents used to challenge Americans.
Right.
They used to say, the state of our union is strong. We may be down, but we're not out. Last night was kind of a whine fest.
Yeah, here's what I've done, and yet the numbers that he has, when you fact check them this morning, are not all that good. Remember the advisory council for the Project 21 Black Leadership Network. We're going to ask about what should be done in the country. But, Kevin, first want to take a call from Bill here who's been waiting. Bill, go ahead. It's your turn to make the call with Kevin Martin.
Yes. Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
Kevin, I'd like to ask you this question. What is your reaction when you begin to debate black people as black liberals, Hispanic liberals, and so forth? How do they react to your positions that you've been discussing with Gary this morning? I'd be interested in knowing what you do and how you say it.
Well,
thanks, Bill.
How could I say this? It's not appropriate for radio. I used to do radio, some of the names I've been called. But as I've told people before, when you call me a name, it means I win the debate. It means that it's a badge of honor for me. And if you're going to call names and scream and yell, it doesn't make, it's not a debate. It's basically, it's like two guys it's like having an argument over the internet. It basically is. It's, it's humorous, but at the end of the day, nothing gets accomplished.
Well, and that's I think the great point that we try to do this every day is that when you come in to debate. Okay, if you want to come in and challenge, but have your figurative guns loaded when you come in and know what you're talking about, because in this day and age of Google and everything else, you go out and check something in 2 seconds. You better have some facts and figures behind you that are not really up for debate to be able to back up your position. That's all.
And they never do. They believe if you scream or call someone a racist, you in their mind that you automatically win the debate. And I'm saying, like, okay, but you never gave anyone anything factual. You never gave an end game. You never gave a solution. All you did was scream. We saw that last night. Populist rhetoric.
Right. And that, to me, the problem is there are people in this country that are buying into that. I looked yesterday, for example, and it said, there was an article out yesterday that 80% of the people who live in D.C. were in favor of the president this year. And I'm thinking,
I live right outside of D.C.
There you go.
And you know why?
Why is that? Why is it?
Because they're getting their check. They have jobs.
Yeah.
You saw it in the Tea Party Express's response last night. 6 of the richest counties in America are located outside of where? Washington, D.C.
Yep.
This is trickle-down big government. People are moving from, let's say, Wyoming, New York. They're moving to the D.C. area. While everyone else is suffering, the D.C. area is going through a boom. You can't even get a house around here for no less than $300,000.
That's amazing. I mean,
a starter home at that.
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, what are the things that should be done right now in this country that the president missed last night?
One of the first things that should be done, if business owners are the backbone of America, as he says, they end the stupid regulations and the Marconian tax codes that make it hard for business owners like me to hire more people. Do you know why 92 million Americans are out of work? I can tell you why. Because most businesses say, oh, you know what? I'm going to do, if you're going to basically put your foot down my throat, I'm going to hire the minimum number of workers. Instead of buying new equipment, I'm going to repair older equipment. Do you know one of the growing facets in private industry now is the repairing of older equipment? Business owners are not buying new computers. They're using older computers.
Right.
They're using everything. People have found ways. All businesses have found a way to either automate, downsize, and then when the president goes out there and has the nerve to say, well, the private sector is doing good.
Yeah.
But in reality, the government sector is the only one that's growing. I remember the words of James Clyburn that government spending was going to pull us out of recession. Well, you know what, James? We're into the 5th year of a jobless recovery, even if you want to call it a recovery, and I'm taking that with a grain of salt. That's why you have 92 million Americans out of work, because I can almost guarantee you, Gary, that some of those 92 million Americans who are sitting on their behinds right now would love to be entrepreneurs, business owners, but you know what? They look at the climate and say, the heck with this.
Well, yeah, if you know that you're going to get support from the government in terms of getting out of your way, if you know you're going to get support from the government in terms of taking less taxes from your honest labor, if you know you're going to get support from the government in terms of, as you mentioned a moment ago, knocking down a lot of these regulations that are in the way and are tearing the heart out of especially small businessmen, having to cover all kinds of regulations and so forth. If you take care of making sure that people like, the groups like OSHA and so forth get out of your way a little bit, yeah, you could make for a lot more entrepreneurial spirit in this country that the president called for last night. But why would you want to do that right now with all those things kind of still in place?
Because first, like I said, Gary, he talked about, we made more small business loans than any other administration. But you want to know what? You're also crushing people with more regulations than any other administration. You have people in this government who have never worked in a field, let's say like OSHA, EPA. These are college professors. These are people who have never worked a day in their life other than academia, telling private business owners how to do things. And you know what people say? You know what? The heck with this. I'll close my doors and go and sit on my behind.
There you go.
Like the man who called 72 years old and still working. In America, that is a disgrace.
Yep, it is.
That is a disgrace. This man has paid all his life, has probably worked since he was the age of 12 like myself, but at 60 years later is still working, that is unsatisfactory in America.
Kevin?
America used to be a country where you worked when you're 65, you paid into Social Security, you got your money, and you enjoyed the rest of your life. You can't even do that nowadays.
Yep. Kevin, we need to learn how to get you away from being so darn shy. You know that. No, it's great having you in this morning, Kevin. I look forward to our next time together, and thank you for some real authentic critique of the president's speech last night. Thank you again for all you're doing. Take care, Kevin. Thanks again, and take care. I said that 3 times, and I take care. Yeah, Department of Redundancy Department. We do that every now and then. Say a lot of words during the week.